All
Okay.
right. Next up, we have Abracadabra Haha by Fish the Magish.
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 Magish. Yep.
He's a
Yep.
magician, you see.
There you go. That makes sense.
Nice.
Yes. And this was seen by Jill, and some of it was seen by Ryan.
But
Then.
kind of the opposite.
Other way around. Seen
We'll
by
get to that.
Ryan, and then
But
Jill
Jill
will
wants to
magically talk about some stuff after Ryan takes the reins.
Fair.
Yeah. Okay, so this, Abracadabra Haha by Fish the Magish. Fish the Magish is the alias of magician and comedian Rob Fishbaum. And before I can get into talking about this show, I have backstory that I need to. I feel like it would be impossible for me to review this show without getting into this, because it also kind of dictates why I wanted to see this in the first place. When I realized that Fish the Magish had a show in Fringe this year, I was quite surprised, because that name means something very specific to me. This man performed at my brother's bar mitzvah. In 2005, my folks hired a magician to perform at my brother's bar mitzvah. I was 11, my brother was 13, obviously. And yeah, so Rob Fishbaum, aka Fish the Magish, has long, almost 20 years backstory in my life here. So, and then, okay, before I get into the end, as a kid, I thought this guy was like the coolest, most amazing magician I've ever seen. He did this one really cool trick at the bar mitzvah where my folks had some like prizes they wanted to give away over the course of the evening, and asked him to kind of integrate that into his show. So the grand finale was, at the time, 2005, the coolest thing you could get would be a boombox. So they wanted him to give away this boombox as part of the show. So he made a bingo game for everyone to participate. And my folks told me and my brothers that, listen, you can play the bingo game, but as like the family hosting this, if you win, you can say bingo, it's fun, but then let's the next person get the prize. So I'm sitting there with my bingo card, and he's calling out numbers, and I'm like, I think I'm actually getting close to winning. Well, I know the instruction, but it'll be fun to shout bingo. If I win, I probably won't win, but maybe.
Yeah.
He calls out B37. It's my last number. I stand up and shout bingo at the same time that literally everybody else in the room does, because he rigged the game that everybody would shout bingo at the exact same time.
Yeah.
What? That's so cool. How did he do it?
I don't
wild.
know, but as an 11-year-old, that was the most impressive magic trick I'd ever seen in my life to that point.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
you wait.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's chapter 1 of the backstory. Then Jill and I were at the lottery party for Fringe, however many months ago that was, and we're sitting in the audience, and when they call the numbers in a bingo-esque fashion for who gets picked for Fringe, I hear Fish the Magish. I know Fish the Magish. And little did I realize the man who was sitting next to me at the lottery party stands up, and I was sitting next to Fish the Magish this whole time. I
Honestly,
didn't
Ryan
recognize
was
him.
like,
It been like 20 years.
it was like it was a
context.
celebrity. It was like it was a celebrity.
Oh,
And, like,
I wish
he
I'd
ran up-
seen this.
Yeah, he ran up to the stage at the lottery party, like did a magic trick on stage while accepting his entrance into the Toronto Fringe. I'm like, this is amazing. I need to see Fish the Magish at Toronto Fringe 2024.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us about it.
Yeah, also my parents wanted to see the show too, so they also went to see this show and
Nice.
Blast from the Past. Yeah, so that's backstory. The show is fun. It's a funny comedy magic show, as the title suggests. Abracadabra haha. It's fusing some comedy, some magic. He even had a line in the show about how people say, yeah, comedy, magic, but put the two together and maybe you've got something. And he does indeed got something here. This guy is so funny. He's so charismatic. It's kind of exactly what you come for. He tells jokes and does magic tricks, kind of weaving the two together, but somewhat back and forth. He has, I think, part of what's most impressive about his magic is he does something kind of reminiscent of Penn and Teller, where he starts by presenting the audience like he's going to teach you how a trick is done to sort of demystify the process of magic. And he does that, and he sort of walks us through the steps of a trick. So we're like, okay, we understand. But then he does something else, like adds a new layer of an additional trick that undermines the explanation we just got of how the trick is done. Like he did this trick with like a fake egg, and he showed us how the fake egg works, but then he cracks it and it's a real egg. Like, well, okay, I thought I understood that you were teaching me how to do this, but then a new wrinkle is presented. So he has like quite a few things throughout the show that are like that, which is really cool. The most impressive one, and I have no idea how he does this, is short of just memorizing a whole book, I guess. But he did this really funny trick where he brought someone from the audience and gave them a Adventures of Sherlock Holmes book. And he stood back to back with them and said, okay, pick a random page and read like the first sentence. Sorry, just pick a random page, tell me what page it is, and I will recite to you what that text is, like the first sentence on that page. So they're standing back to back, and we, the audience, see that he pulls out an identical book, and as he's getting the page numbers, he's flipping through and reading it. So the person, it's a trick being played on the audience participant, because they think this is amazing. He knows all the words, but we see that he's cheating. Ha! It's funny for us. But then as they turn to each other and he reveals that he has the book, haha, big laugh, he shows us that the pages of the book are completely blank. He wasn't reading along. And I'm like, oh my God, what? Like, that was the vibe of this show. Like, every time you think you thought the source of the comedy was, let me show you how I did this trick, and then he throws in the new layer of, aha, there's an even greater trick that you had no idea. Like, he's actually really incredible. And like, not all of the tricks are necessarily mind-blowing, but they're all very entertaining, and he has a funny demeanor. I will say that there are a few tricks that have clearly been in his repertoire for a while, because there were some things he did in this show that I didn't realize I remembered from my brother's bar mitzvah show until he said a line or did a thing. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. He did it back then. So, he's using tried and true material. There's a funny joke where he tells a story about his dad, and there's a funny line about him calling his dad, listen, Buster, but that's actually my dad's name, so I wasn't being rude. And I remember I had like the kind of flashback of, I've heard this joke before, wait a minute. And anyway, it's hard for me to be critical, objective with any of this, because there's so much like personal history and weird things tied up in this. But I thought, this was such a real fun time. He did have, for the most part, this was like an all ages type show. He had one late evening show that was supposedly adult oriented, R-rated. I did not go to that one. I went to one of the main daytime shows that was appropriate for all ages. I did talk to some friends and other critics that I know who did attend the adult oriented show, and most of them said that despite that label, it was still fairly tame. Maybe he threw in like one F-bomb, one slightly raunchier joke, but otherwise you could probably, take a mature child to any of them. But I thought this was a hoot. It was a really good time. Jill, I know you have more you want to say about this, even though you didn't see it, so by all means.
So what was so neat is, because I went to the Fringe Lottery with Ryan, I got to see like who Fish the Magish was. But I frequented the Fringe tent every night almost. Made really good friends with the bartender, Brianna, shout out, and to everyone else there. So what I really loved about Fish the Magish was at the earlier tent soirees of Fringe, as part of his advertising for his show, is he was doing street magic. So, which means he was walking around and he had like a deck of cards or like coins or stuff that, you would see done on the street. And that's how he would just pop up and do magic tricks for folks. And then at the end, plug that he's doing abracadabra, haha, and as a part of Fringe. So shout out to phenomenal marketing, because you're giving us a taste of what we could see. And he's like, this is street magic. And then this show that you're going to be seeing is stage magic. And he's like, they're different in certain ways. So it was a night that I was actually catching up with Katie Miller, who's also a great friend of and been on the Cup. And her and I are just sitting at a table, and Fish comes up to us and just asks if he can do some card tricks with us. And Katie and I, our minds were blown. I was like, and I've been to Vegas, and I was like, at the end of this, I was like, Fish, you could be in Vegas. Like, the fact that he would just make cards turn into different cards without anything, like without going through a sleeve or like going into his pocket. And by the end of it, I was just like, of course that's going to be my card, because like this man is an actual wizard. And he was just like, had such a sweet demeanor. He was like, like, I'm a high school counselor right now, but when I retired, like, I'd love to do this more full time. And I was like, please do, because you have such a wonderful aura about you. And like it's the best magic, like the best magician I've ever come face to face with. Because I also think, like you were saying, Ryan, like the way he delivers too is such like a chortly kind of like fun, quippy way. You kind of got to keep up with him, like stay on your feet. And then you think the trick is what the trick is going to be. And then at the last minute, he changes it. And you're just like, that to me is part of his shtick, I think. And it's just.
Yeah. I think
so
also
great.
it's cool that you're mentioning the sort of like up close magic vibe that you had at the tent, because on multiple occasions when I was standing in line for another show during Fringe, he would show up and just like start doing tricks for people in the lines of a completely different show. And yeah,
Right.
it's all part of this kind of marketing strategy that he knows, like, this is how you get people excited for a magic show, show them a trick out of context, bombard them in a different setting, and then if you can wow them and charm them, then maybe they'll come to the actual
Yeah.
thing. So very well done.
So everyone, like, hire Fish the Magish for your parties, for your
For your
soirees.
children's
up.
bar mitzvahs.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's Abracadabra Haha by Fish the Magish. Moving on
Fish
to
the
our
Magish.
next show.
Wonderful.